And I see a whole army of my countrymen here in defiance of tyranny. You've come to fight as free men. And free men you are. What will you do without freedom? Will you fight? Fight? Against that? No! We will run! And we will live. Aye. Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
And welcome to this edition of Six Emperor Tyrannus News. I'm your host, Osama bin Mathini. Now, why do I call myself Osama bin Mathini? As you see my title here, my name, Osama bin Mathini. Well, that's because, people, we're Americans who love our Constitution. We love our country. We love what it stands for. We love freedom, liberty, the right to worship our Creator as our conscience dictates, the right to make choices about our medical, choices. All of those things have made us terrorists. And that's because the DHS has labeled us as terrorists, domestic terrorists. If you love the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, you love your country, and you want to be able to do, to work and make a living and do all these things without infringement by the government, then you're a domestic terrorist. So, since, I've been labeled as a domestic terrorist probably by the DHS and the FBI and those things, then I figured I would dress with the proper headgear and call myself Osama bin Mathini instead of Mark Mathini. Maybe that will make them feel better. But it's a very serious issue, people. The U.S. government, we're seeing, has basically made us all domestic terrorists. And I've went over this before, but just as a reminder, this was from February 7th. This was just not too long ago. This is why they're calling us domestic terrorists. That's why I'm wearing this funny getup on my head. The United States remains in a heightened threat environment fueled by several factors, including online environment filled with false or misleading narratives and conspiracy theories and other forms of dis, and malinformation introduced or amplified by foreign and domestic threat actors. And it says these threat actors seek to exacerbate societal friction, to sow discord, and undermine public trust in government institutions. That's not what we're doing. We're not the ones that are sowing distrust in government institutions. It's the governments themselves that are doing so. Right now, over in Canada, we've got the protests going on the protesters are there, the truckers, peacefully protesting against the mandates. And now that they're doing that, you have Trudeau, the Gestapo Nazi Hitler Trudeau, who must be one of the offspring of Hitler, apparently. And he is now sending out his brown shirts to defeat the truckers and basically get rid of them. Heavily armed Ottawa police have arrested so far at least 70 of the protesters. And they're running they're basically out there clearing 24 hours a day. I want to show you a couple of video footages from some of the things going on right now in Ottawa. So let's go to this one. This is a live broadcast, I believe, with right here. Let's go to this one right now.
Moving in with the horses, moving in potentially with, it was either tear gas or pepper spray, I'm not sure, but I saw a bunch of people getting taken away with tear gas or pepper spray in
This
their
is
eyes.
Press for Truth.
And so I went down there to document it, and the police and some militarized-looking police kind of started forming their lines, and then riot police started.
That is a top shot picture.
And then that lasted
when the
for,
horses came
that
through.
continued like that for probably 3 or 4 hours. And it's all kind of died down. It's fizzled down quite a bit now. And I honestly think it's just going to kind of fade out tonight. And that'll be that. And all these people are going to recoup and get ready for the big day tomorrow, which for the last couple of weekends here in Ottawa, it's been a pretty big party in this town. So tomorrow is going to be interesting. I'm going to get a bunch of interviews with the people who you want to hear from the most. You know, a lot of independent media are coming here and they're just interviewing like the organizers, the main organizers, and some of the kind of big names in the movement. And that's not really what I'm here for. I want to speak to the people on the grounds, the people who've been here for 3 weeks, the truckers. Go back on this stream, guys. You'll see an interview I did with the guy walking by on the street. He had a sign saying he's lost 3 family members to the vaccine. Just terrible. But tomorrow is going to be a big day. I'm going to get, solid interviews done. We'll do another couple of live streams. Probably go to Odyssey soon instead, so we're not building up this stupid YouTube channel, which is probably just going to terminate this stream or delete it after the fact. Or especially if I capture something major going down, they'll just delete it. So I can't trust YouTube. But I figured for the first day I'd go live here because,
So that's Press for Truth. They are covering the events down there right now. That's a live broadcast. Press for Truth on YouTube. Here's another live broadcast going on right now as well. This one, I believe, was from the 18th as well today. And this was, what is it called? Viva Frei or Viva Frei. They were there broadcasting. This is a little bit of it.
What's up, everyone? I forgot my tripod today. Oops, sorry. Forgot my tripod, so it's going to be, nope. You're going to be a little closer to my face than normal, and you might see the look of absolute disgust and dismay. I don't know what the word is. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Let me know if you can hear me fine enough, because I forgot my tripod. I'm gonna have to figure out if I hold it like.
So Viva
Okay.
Frei is also
So,
down there. They
first of all,
are
everyone-
covering events in Ottawa as well. But the Canadian police started towing the tow trucks, began towing trucks that were there who are protesting. So this is an onslaught of attacks against these lawfully protesting people. Here is a little bit of that as well. Just some of the footage I'll show you, not a lot of it. This is some of the footage where the protesters were gathered and the police officers were coming in and starting to pull the trucks out. They're shutting them down, trying to end these protests, because I'm telling you, people, this is a major threat to these global elitists. They do not like seeing organizations like this of organic grassroots people coming in and resisting their authority. So, and we know why they're resisting it. We want choice. We do not want to be told what to do, mandated what to do as far as our bodies are concerned specifically. And most of these things are going down now anyway. Most states, most countries, they're dropping all of this garbage. And yet Trudeau, the Nazi Trudeau, is still pushing hardcore and bringing in his Gestapo to put this thing down. And so you have that. That's more footage. Here are some of the police beginning to go in. This is from Global News. I'll show you a little bit of that. This is a long video, so I'm not going to show all of it, but I will show you some of the footage of the police officers going in to start to put down this, what they're calling unlawful event. Now, when Black Lives Matter and Antifa groups, you know, riot and burn stuff and destroy statues and everything, that's fine. That's perfectly okay. These people are protesting, and it's not okay. But here is some of the footage. Global News. And by the way, I'm wearing my turban because, you know, we've all been labeled domestic terrorists. If you love the country, you love the Constitution, you want freedom, you're standing up for your rights, you're standing up against big government, you're a terrorist, basically.
Yeah, you can make that
A white
poster,
supremacist terrorist.
We should just stay on.
Don't worry about it. Just keep I know, just watch that. I'm getting hits with that. Of course I'm not. I'll be like, oh, listen. If I ask you for a battery, try and grab one for him in case I lose power.
That's from a little earlier. Here's some more of that footage. I'll show you when the police start coming in. drawing their weapons. This is what tyranny looks like, people. This is exactly what it is. These people are lawfully protesting, and they have to send in the brown shirts, all of these traitors, basically, who these people swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. I know this is Canada, whatever their Constitution is, but basically, they're supposed to be serving the people, but they look like a bunch of freaking Nazis. I'm eating some chips right now. So that's them anyway. But I'm telling you, people, here's what the problem is. During this, there was a afternoon press conference there, and the interim Ottawa police chief, Steve Bell, was telling the reporters that Ottawa police have made about 70 arrests, and one of them was a high-profile organizer, Tamara Litch, Chris Barber, and Pat King, and they towed 21 vehicles. That was around 4 o'clock today, 4 o'clock this afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. And Bell also said the plan to move in on the protesters, methodical and well thought out, noting officers had control of the situation on the ground. It says, we'll run this operation 24 hours a day until the residents and community have their city back. So, my point is, this is happening in Canada, but here in the United States, we're all watching. And like I said, I'm wearing my terrorist garb because, DHS has labeled us, Americans who love the country and love our Constitution, as domestic terrorists. So you'll see at the bottom, I changed my name to Osama bin Mathini. There's my new name. That's probably what the FBI labels me as, is Osama bin Mathini. But in seriousness, we have been labeled as domestic terrorists because we don't want big government. We don't want them telling us what to do, what to put into our bodies. And this is the same thing that's happening in Canada. But now you see Trudeau and them, they don't give a damn. They don't care about their people. They don't care about safety. They don't care about freedom. They care about control. And so these officers all the way across Ontario and Quebec, as well as the RCMP, have joined the police there, and they're trying to put down these protests. And so they began to arrest the Freedom Convoy members. And there are some reports that are coming out that some of the officers were wielding military-style weapons as they were closing in on these protesters. Here's a picture of one of the armed Gestapo members going in. So, look at this. You really need this type of people to go in to stop some peaceful protesters who are simply parked in their trucks, singing songs, waving flags, and saying, we want a choice. This is what they do when you want choice. This is the new way of the New World Order. And so this is what's happening. And there were some Twitter users who were reporting that police officers, or maybe some type of special operations officers, were outfitted in full combat gear with assault rifles and equipped with silencers as they approached peaceful, unarmed protesters. Now, it's insanity. And so Mackenzie Gray on Twitter was saying people are leaving their trucks and their cars because these cops are coming up with big weapons, they said, and then the cops are searching their vehicles and things. Let me show you a little bit of video from that. Let me set that up. This is very short, but this is some video from Twitter of these police officers going in and intimidating these harmless, peaceful protesters. And you'll see the vehicles and everything. Let me pull that up. Big assault vehicles. It's ridiculous. All this is about is intimidation, people. That's all this is for. All they want is for us not to protest. That's exactly what this is. They know this is lawful. These people aren't doing anything. They're not harming anybody. But they send in paramilitary style police officers to intimidate people because they don't want you protesting. That's all it is. They don't want you protesting. They know this scared these elites. And they don't want that scene of all these truckers making a stand against big government and getting funded in the millions of dollars by the average person, because that terrifies big government. And again, like I said, I'm dressed like this because DHS, Homeland Security, has stated that if you are a constitutionalist, if you're peddling conspiracy theories about certain events that took place, 9/11 or the Capitol riots, if you're not giving the government narrative, you are a domestic terrorist. So my new name is Osama bin Mathini, domestic terrorist, right here in the United States. My little symbol up here above is Insight on Freedom. You know, that's an extreme terrorist organization, somebody who wants the Constitution. And I want to remind people, I don't know if you have one of these. This is a terrorist document called a Citizen Rule Book. If you haven't seen it, the Jury Handbook. But I want to read something to you from it as a reminder to all Americans, because I think some people need to hear this. And for YouTube and for the CIA and the FBI, everybody watching, I'm just reading a document, mind you. This is the Congress, July 4th, 1776. Unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. And I want to remind everybody about our founding fathers and the risk they took to build this country against Britain, against a powerful army and navy back then. But they came here and they risked everything they had to develop a free country where we could be free. It says, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature... What is that noise? Sorry about that, guys. I don't know what that noise was. Maybe the FBI is trying to shut me down. And to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitles them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's we the people. Now, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying the foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And it says, prudent indeed will dictate the governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And according to all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But, listen to this, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, but it also says not just their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. And he goes on. Obviously, this was back in 1776. But we could be reading that today, people. The same thing. We have a long train of abuses. We have despotism. We know what took place, and I'm not going to say exactly right now, but we know what took place November 3rd and in January. We know why people are fed up. We know that the rogue government that we have now is a despotic government. We know that everything they're doing is not to build anything back better, people. It's to destroy the country, economically, spiritually, morally. And here's the thing. I know that we listen to all these different shows, and I respect a lot of these shows, the alternative news agencies like InfoWars and Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson and all of them. But I'm going to tell you this. I'm just going to say it. I'm not advocating protest. Oh, we got to peacefully protest. We've been doing that. We have been doing that. We've been peacefully protesting. Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they get to run around and burn down stuff and tear up stuff and murder people and invade courthouses and go in and do sit-downs in these places, and nothing happens. We peacefully protest, and you see what's going on in Canada. That's what the result of your peaceful protest is they come and arrest you and take you away. Because they don't give a damn about your peaceful protest. That's all they want you to do, is to lay down, be sleeping dogs. And like I said, I'm giving information right now only. Go back in history when our founding fathers came to the United States and then the British came over here. The way we won was we peacefully protested. And the British just ran away after that. Isn't that nice? They stood there and they peacefully protested. And because they peacefully protested so well, the British turned around and said, oh, you know, they have great signs and they peacefully protested so well, we're just going to go ahead and leave and give them this country and we're going to leave them alone. That's not what the hell happened, people. And then after that, a fight until we threw off the redcoats, until we threw off the British. And all I'm saying is, as long as you suffer these people to do tyrannical things to us, that's what we're going to get. Am I saying anything else? No. I'm just telling you because I know exactly what they're thinking. But I'm just telling you the truth. This tyranny is going to escalate more and more as long as the people allow it. How far will tyranny go? It'll go as far as you let it. That's it. That's what will happen. You've got these people in Canada. We're seeing the results of peaceful protesting right now. Here's some more video. Cops coming in, busting out windows in trucks, RVs, who simply want to be heard and to say, hey, we want the mandates lifted. We want choice. We're truckers. We're trying to deliver supplies. These are our lifeline. These truckers are the lifeline of the republic. These are the lifeline of how we live, people. Everybody in Canada right now, everybody should be out in the streets protesting. They should be protesting this garbage of these cops, these Gestapo and Trudeau. They should be demanding that Trudeau get thrown out. They should be telling him he needs to get the hell out of government. But here is some of the cops, Gestapo now, in Canada. Also, footage of them breaking out windows and stuff in RV. Fully armed like they're going into Afghanistan or something. Look at this. I mean, they're treating these people like they're drug dealers or something. They're treating the people like they're drug dealers. You probably see me with this ridiculous getup on, and my name says Osama bin Mathini. It's because that's what DHS is saying about us. You know, they are basically labeling Americans who are sick and tired of big government, this failed government, banana republic, this illegal occupation of the White House by some nutcase named Biden, which is really just the third Obama. Information is coming out about the spying, not only on Trump Tower, but at the White House, in the Oval Office. And it deals with Hillary Clinton. It deals with Obama. It deals with all these attorneys of theirs, the DNC. And so if that proof can come out that it happened in 2016, that they were spying on Trump's campaign and seeking to try to affect the elections, then what do you think? Think again. Think about what happened. That's weird. But there were no shenanigans. There were no shenanigans in 2020, people. Remember that. I want you to remember that. There were no shenanigans. Sit down and shut your mouth, or you'll be banned, because we know there were no shenanigans that took place in the last election. Biden, he won in a landslide in his basement with no viewers because he's that cool. He's that good. And if you didn't vote for him and you were a black person, then you're not really black, apparently. But they had snipers in Canada. They actually have snipers on the roof of the Senate building there and at the Rideau Center buildings in Ottawa. Snipers on the roofs, people, for peaceful protesters who have been there for all this time, and no incidents of violence except for one where an Antifa guy drove his car into some vehicles there. But other than that, there's been no violence, but yet they come in with snipers and paramilitary troops, basically like they're invading. I mean, it's insanity. They got more troops there at the freaking Canada protest than probably Putin has on the border of Russia right now. You know? I mean, it's like insanity. But here is some of that video. This is like 23 seconds long, but this is... You can see on the building, if you look right in the middle of the screen, you're going to see on the building snipers on the roofs. As you can see, I don't know if you can see him, he's right here. And also on some of the other roofs they're showing, see, right up here on the roof. Right there, snipers. I mean, it's pathetic. It's ridiculous. For peaceful protesters. We didn't see those things happening when Black Lives Matter and Antifa groups were running around burning cities and looting and everything. And there was another report. These were all on Twitter, by the way. An Ottawa police officer beats a knee thrust an already wounded man to the ground. Okay, this is from CBK News. Let me pull that up real fast. It's a short clip too, but I want you to see this. If you haven't been watching the news, and obviously the mainstream news hasn't been covering half of this stuff because they don't want you to know about what's going on in Canada. They don't want people to know that people are fed up with their governments and their dictates and their technocracy, thinking they're gods. But here is the clip. Let me pull that up so you can see it too. Just manhandling people. Unarmed. Look at this. And the guy's already wounded. Sorry. Come on. But the guy's already wounded, and you can just see him manhandling this guy like it's nothing. Look at him, kneeing him in his back, kicking him. Sorry, bastards. And then the guy's yelling of people being drug away. An elderly woman apparently also being led away. And, of course, the officers all have, these masks on so that you don't know who they are. But here is that video. Let me show you that one. This one's a little longer, but I'm going to pull it up so you can see it well. So here's...
This is disgusting! Disgusting! Oh my God!
You're now attacking different older people?
Attacking old people. I mean, this guy's like 70 years old out there. And they're roughing him up like he's Al Qaeda. I'm sorry for the lag. But this is what's happening, people. And so, that's why, like I said, I'm wearing this garb, and my name is Osama bin Mathini, because that's the label, basically, that under this current rogue government they have given us. There were armored tactical vehicles there as well on the scene, bringing in armored vehicles to this event when they haven't seen any instances of violence. None. Really. Mounted cops moving in. And so, think about it, people. That's in Canada. That's right on our doorstep. And this is what they're doing. They're trying to condition you to be afraid of protesting when we have a constitutional right to peaceful protesting. And these are unfolding because you've got the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who basically has gone nuts and has gone all military on unarmed civilians, and all they're asking for is their freedoms back from all of this crisis. You know which one. And also, you got to think about it. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association even condemned Trudeau for invoking the Emergencies Act. Let me see if I can find that. This was from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association has condemned Prime Minister Justin Trudeau for invoking the Emergency Act, claiming on Monday tweet that the Canadian federal government has not met the threshold necessary to do so. There's no reason to. The emergencies, this is a quote, "The Emergencies Act can only be invoked when a situation seriously threatens the ability of the government of Canada to preserve the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Canada, when the situation cannot be effectively dealt with under any other law of Canada." That's the actual law. And they're saying he hasn't met that threshold. These people are not committing any type of insurrection. They were beeping their horns. They were singing. They're waving flags and singing songs. And they're trying to make that sound like that's terrorism. It can only be invoked, the Emergency Act can only be invoked in serious when the situation seriously threatens the ability of the government of Canada to preserve the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of Canada. You know, we're not seeing an overrun by, they didn't come in there with guns and attack the Canadian government or anything. These are truckers just simply parking their trucks and protesting peacefully. And you have a lot of instances like this. And like I said, in the United States, we've seen plenty of instances where you had Black Lives Matter and Antifa groups doing way worse, attacking people, burning things, tearing down statues, attacking buildings, busting windows, stealing and looting and murdering, basically. But they're the left, so it's okay, I guess. So I'll show you, there was one of the officials in Canada that basically said Trudeau is the one who created this emergency, that he's making a mountain out of a molehill, basically. Let me show you that video right here. This is only a couple minutes long, but I want you to hear this video.
Justin Trudeau has caused a political emergency. While the rest of the world and provinces across Canada are beginning to remove restrictions and mandates, Justin Trudeau decided to pile new ones on, targeting truckers' livelihoods. And now he's got protests right around the country. And now he's dropping in the polls, desperately trying to save his political career and save face for himself. The solution is staring him in the face. All he has to do is listen to the protesters, including, and speaking of, I stand with those peaceful and law-abiding protesters, including truckers, who are championing their freedoms and their jobs, while holding personally accountable any individuals who behave badly, break laws, or participate in blockades of critical economic infrastructure. I've always been against blockades, and I still am now, because I don't believe you can gain your freedom by blocking someone else's. So yes to peaceful protests, no to blockades. And you know how we can put an end to both of them, though? It's real simple. Listen to the science. Do what the other provinces and the other countries are doing. That is to end the mandates and the restrictions so the protesters can get back to their lives and their jobs.
So if they're ending the mandate, sorry about that, my mic was cut off and I'm eating some Cheez-Its right now. But if, you know, this guy's saying, end the mandates, that's it. Everybody else is starting to. They're doing a stand down on all this garbage. This crisis is over. So what the hell are you doing? You know, but the other big thing, guys, that's serious, and I wanted to cover too, is they are unilaterally authorizing these banks to freeze accounts on the basis of suspicion alone, with no court orders and with legal immunity. And so this is very dangerous. This is very dangerous because this is all a part of this globalization effort to instill what we call the mark of the beast system, basically. Not being able to buy and sell unless you receive that mark. And think about that, though. They're basically saying if you don't conform to their image, to what they want you to do, then they're going to stop your livelihood. You cannot buy and sell. Now, I don't know if that's what the mark of the beast is, but it sure damn sounds like it. It sounds close enough to me that I'm uncomfortable with that. And Trudeau pushed this Emergency Powers Act on Monday, and I guess he's thinking that's going to shut it down, but it's still going on, people. It's still going on. The protests are still going on. They haven't stopped. I'll show you, as a matter of fact, this is currently what's going on. Jeff Mack and them are recording right now. This is downtown in Canada. And you still got plenty of protesters there. These people are not giving up. And that's the thing. What we need is more people going down there. We need more Canadians coming down there. We need Americans going there. But I don't know what the legal issues of that would be or whatever. But you know what? Damn it. Damn the legal issues, because now this is everyone's freedom on the line, people. This is a beta test. And so you see me with my terrorist garb on. I thought I would wear my schmog today in the show because, you know, America has been labeled as terrorist. If you love the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, you're a terrorist. And that's why I'm wearing this in honor of the name that the DHS has given us, terrorist. But yes, we are in the middle of this. Now, we also have the administration trying to create war in the Ukraine province. And for those who haven't seen it, I did a show, The Truth About the Ukraine-Russian Conflict. But this all goes back, people, when in 2014, there was a coup in the Ukraine, the U.S. government, to take out a pro-Russian president there and put in an anti-Russian president. At the same time, they said, they sent Hunter Biden in there under Burisma as the board. You had Joe Biden going over there, and they set up what they called a so-called anti-corruption organization. They sent $1.8 billion there to Privat Bank, with a known crazy terrorist nutcase over there running the bank system who was cutting people's heads off and stuff. Couldn't even get a visa to the United States because they wanted the Ukraine to become part of NATO. And then you had in the southeastern portion of Ukraine, you had this breakaway by the pro-Russian separatists who were saying that basically the Ukrainians were took over and annexed Crimea because Russia and them know they made a Minsk agreement with the Ukraine, with the United States, with European NATO and so on, that there would be no NATO expansion eastward, and then they did. And so right now we can see today, I'll show you some news that's going on with that. There's more provocations, even though Russia had, according to reports, been pulling their troops back. But today there was a pipeline explosion that was in eastern Ukraine. That's in the pro-Russian separatist area. They want to create this war. And so there was this pipeline explosion, and it went out. It was on social media and everything. Vladimir Putin has decided to launch further invasions into the Ukraine, including an assault on the capital, Kiev, with no evidence, but this is what he's saying anyway. So this is important to understand. They're trying to evoke a war. And here's what Biden says. As of this moment, I'm convinced he's made the decision. We have reason to believe that he reiterated that it is going to come in the coming days, meaning an invasion. We believe they will target Ukraine's capital, Kiev, a city of 2.8 million innocent people. This is what Biden was saying today. And then you had Antony Blinken coming out, and he was scheduled to speak with Minister Sergei Lavrov on Tuesday, this last Tuesday, and he said that there's still time for negotiations. Obviously, in my opinion, they're trying to create this war. They are trying to start this war with the Ukraine. I'm going to take off my ridiculous hat. I just thought I'd put on my hat, like I said, because the United States Department of Homeland Security has labeled us as terrorist. And I'm reading what they say. Here's what they're saying. Mass casualty attacks and other acts of targeted violence. Let me show you on the screen This is from the bulletin from the National Terrorism Advisory, February 7th. And they're saying that if you are trying to undermine public trust in government institutions to encourage unrest, which could potentially inspire acts of violence, mass casualty attacks, and other acts of targeted violence conducted by lone offenders and small groups in furtherance of ideological beliefs or personal grievances pose an ongoing threat to the nation. Well, that sounds like Antifa and Black Lives Matter, doesn't it? Isn't that what they were doing the whole time? Basically, with their ideologies. And so they come in and they, except for the fact checkers on Facebook, or what's the other one with the cat lady? She sits there and she tells you Snopes. You know, these people aren't fact checkers, people. These people are leftist, and they just push the leftist narrative. And it says, which sow discord or undermine public trust in U.S. government institutions. And again, we're not sowing distrust in government institutions. They are. The governments are. This government is sowing its own distrust. I mean, they come in, they're shutting down gas pipelines. They just effed up the Afghanistan retreat. Well, that's basically what it was under Biden. Getting the hell out of Afghanistan, leaving $83 billion worth of equipment, Bagram Air Base basically to the Chinese. This guy is a traitor and a sellout. He should be kicked out of office, at least. And also, it says, now I've watched Trump supporters and I've seen patriots. Nobody's calling for violence directed against U.S. critical infrastructure or soft targets. The only ones who were doing these things were Black Lives Matter and Antifa groups. These were the people going crazy and going nuts, not American patriots who love the country and the Constitution of the United States, who supported Trump. I'm not saying whether you've supported Trump or not. If you like the country, if you're a veteran, if you're a patriot, I'm a veteran. They're trying to attack that. They're trying to undermine that. They're trying to destroy morality here. I want to show you a little bit of a video that I did in regards to the U.S. government, National Security Council, labeling patriots as domestic terrorists. It's important for you to understand that. So here is that report. I won't play it all, but I'm going to play a little bit of it. For those who don't understand exactly what is coming, people, this is very serious and deadly. And right now we know that there's all that information coming out about the spying by the Clinton DNC and Hillary Clinton and Obama, basically under that administration, spying on Trump's campaign, spying, even wiretapping the White House. If that's not treason, what is? That's real treason. Why ain't these people in jail? They never go to jail. Nobody ever goes to jail. But here is that report. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of Sic Semper Tyrannis News. I'm your host, Mark Matheny. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I figured I'd look a little more professional. Actually, I had something going on earlier today, a death in the family, an aunt, and so I went to the showing. And you know, you got to remember in life, it's short, and the Bible says, "For what is your life? It is as a vapor of smoke that appears for a moment and then disappears." And so, remember to be good to your family and check them out and visit them and things before that inevitable day that, you know, you have to go and see them because they're no longer here. So I want to come on actually today, people, to talk about some alarming things. We know that we go back to January 6th, on the day that the electoral process was to take place, the electoral votes, they were to, either accept the electoral votes or to object to them. And we know that on that day, President Trump called for a large gathering, and people were anticipating millions of people showing up. Some estimates say that there were at least hundreds of thousands, if not over 1 million people there at the Capitol building. And originally that day, President Trump made a speech earlier before the Senate gathered to validate the electoral votes and so on. And remember that President Trump called for a peaceful gathering. They wanted to show that there were millions of people who supported President Trump and that we were demanding a proper investigation into the elections due to so much voter fraud that was appearing. Now, we know that the mainstream news and them were trying to block a lot of that by censorship. And that's when, we started seeing censorship on Facebook and YouTube stating that, basically the electoral process is great and there's no fraud and so on and so forth. And they were censoring a lot of things that President Trump was saying. They were, censoring anything that anybody was saying, basically, if it was questioning the elections. And YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and, all these other social media sites basically were all in one accord with blocking anything negative about the elections. Well, we know since then that the White House, under this rogue administration, illegitimate dictatorship that we have now, yeah, that's right, and they have really tried to demonize, not only say that the events that took place on January 6th were wrong. Maybe, people went into the Capitol building and they could consider that trespassing and some vandalizing and so on, and maybe even some rioting. No, they want to go forth and say that it was a total insurrection. We know that the only person killed that day as a direct result of the altercations, or whatever you want to call them, was Ashley Babbitt, and she was basically assassinated by a Capitol police officer. And but there's never been anything done about that. But they wanted death. They wanted some carnage there. Unfortunately, it had to be one of the Trump supporters. 3 other people died indirectly afterwards from other reasons, a stroke, a suicide, and some other reason, but not as a direct result of the altercations that took place January 6th. But since then, now the Biden dictatorship, this rogue overthrow of our government, these terrorists in the White House is what I believe they are, because that's exactly what they're doing with people. They're terrorizing people with all of their edicts. And as far as the coronavirus, as far as the election, everything. Now there is a document coming out that I want to show you, and what it's doing basically is labeling all of us as terrorists. And this was reported on the ABC Nightly News. Potential terror threats, opposition to COVID measures, claims of election fraud, belief that Trump could be reinstated, 9/11 anniversary, and religious holidays. National terrorist alert ahead of 9/11 20th anniversary. 20 years ago. So let's take a look. I want to show you this document. It's a full PDF, and I'm going to start it from the top, but I'm going to show you what it says in parts of this document. Here is the actual document from the U.S. government. It is called the National Strategy for Countering Domestic Terrorism, and this is June of 2021 under the Biden regime. this dictatorship. And it says, too often over the past several years, now listen to this, American communities have felt the wrenching pain of domestic terrorism. Black church members slaughtered during the Bible study in Charleston, a synagogue in Pittsburgh, a gunman spraying bullets, and it goes against everything our country strives to stand for in the world, and so on and so forth. So they're going through and they're talking about this national strategy to fight domestic terrorism. But I'm not going to go through all of this because there's just so much to go through. But let me pull you to a specific part. It says domestic terrorism is both persistent and evolving. Domestic terrorism, okay? This is what this article is about. But let me go down to this portion. Assessment of the domestic violent extremism threat. Now, look at this. I'm going to blow this up so you can see it. March 2021. The intelligence community assesses that domestic violent extremists who are motivated by a range of ideologies and galvanized by recent political and social or societal events in the United States pose an elevated threat to the homeland in 2021. Enduring domestic violent extremist motivations pertaining to biases against minority populations and perceived government overreach will almost certainly continue to drive domestic violent extremist radicalization and mobilization to violence. So, first off, you see in the overtones of this, or the undertones, I could say, biases against minority populations. What is that? What is a minority population? Well, right now, people, the minority population is starting to be Caucasian people, because here in the United States, we're getting so many different ethnicities into the United States that the white population is actually starting to become the minority. So if you want to look at it that way, but that's not what this is talking about. This is actually talking about white people having biases against other minority populations is what they're talking about. But let's go back to the article. It says, newer socio-political developments, now listen to this, such as narratives of fraud in the recent general election, the emboldening impact of the violent breach of the U.S. Capitol, conditions related to the COVID-19 pandemic, and conspiracy theories promoting violence will almost certainly spur some domestic violent extremists to try to engage in violence this year. Okay? So what is that saying basically, essentially? They're saying if you're questioning the mask mandates, if you believe that the election was fraudulent, if you have any conspiracy theories about 9/11 and what happened on that day, if you were emboldened by what took place at the Capitol building on January 6th, you are a domestic terrorist. You're a domestic terrorist. If you're questioning the elections, if you say that Joe Biden is not really the president, that he's a fraud, that he's a dictator, which I'm saying, I'm a patriot. I love my country. I love the constitutional republic of the United States. I subscribe to everything the founding fathers set up. I've served my country in the military, overseas. That doesn't make you a terrorist, people, regardless of what this rogue administration says. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to scare you, terrify you into believing that you have no right to stand up and question their so-called authority. That's what they're doing. But let me remind you of some real terrorism. Let me remind you of some real domestic terrorism. Let's go back to May 28th. May 28th of 2020. when you had more than 50 Secret Service agents injured during violent clashes outside of the White House, during 6 nights of violence after George Floyd was killed or died. And these attacks came in which President Trump had to be moved to a secure bunker underneath the White House during terror attacks. Now, why do I call them terror attacks? Well, that's because what the Sun reported on May 28th. Let's go to that, shall we? At dawn's door, 50 Secret Service agents injured in the White House riots as Donald Trump is taken to terror attack bunker. And this was on June 2020. Because it happened, started on May 28th, I believe, and then went all the way on, like I said, 6 days. But listen, the attacks came after President Trump was reportedly moved to a secure bunker, usually used. Now, the attacks didn't happen afterwards. That's the reason they moved him to the bunker, was because you had these heated attacks, protesters gathering outside the White House. And what do you think they were going to do? And who were these protesters? Well, this was Antifa and Black Lives Matter. Antifa and Black Lives Matter groups, people. They were the ones assaulting and attempting to breach the White House on May 28th through June 1st. And so it was like 6 days long. But I'm going to show you a portion of that video that the Sun put up regarding this assault on the White House that the mainstream news doesn't want to remind you of. This is Antifa and Black Lives Matter groups right outside of the White House. More than 50 police officers injured, some with broken bones, according to the report. And regardless of whether it was because of George Floyd's death, it doesn't validate that this was a terrorist attack. In other words, it doesn't make it valid for them to do the same thing worse, way worse than what happened at the January 6th protest. Look at this. Looting, burning, attacking, threatening, beating police officers. They had to take the president down to the terror bunker. This was an insurrection. Look at this. This is what domestic terrorism really looks like, if you want to know the truth. They had to take extreme measures to protect the White House and the President of the United States. But the mainstream media is not going to tell you that. And they forgot about this. They didn't call this an insurrection. They didn't call that an insurrection. Not at all. But if you go back and look, agents had to rush Trump to a state-of-the-art presidential emergency center, a bunker basically, as they were concerned for his safety. And that was according to the New York Times. The New York Times reported that. As protest and violence spill over, except, New York Times had to word it like, oh, Trump had to run away. No, Trump was escorted down to the bunker by Secret Service agents. They wouldn't have done it if they didn't think he was in danger. A senior official involved in defending Washington, D.C. later told Fox News dozens of Secret Service officers were injured in clashes on Sunday night. One source claimed some rioters were seen throwing bottles and Molotov cocktails at law enforcement officers. The source also claimed some rioters, others were spotted parking cars near the presidential palace filled with incendiary materials for future use. That was according to Fox News. Incendiary materials parked in cars near the president's palace. But that's not terrorism? That isn't terrorism? Give me a break. This was where Trump had to go basically into an underground bunker to a control center, nuclear bomb proof, secret lift access, 5 stories below ground with vault type doors. They had to put him in this because they were concerned that there might be a breach of the White House that night. But yet they want to call the January 6th an insurrection. U.S. Marshals and the Drug Enforcement Agency agents have been sent onto the city streets to support under pressure cops and Homeland Security agents. That's what happened back then. And among those protesting in D.C. during the current unrest, it says agents from the Secret Service and Justice Department confirmed this last night. At one stage, the lights which illuminate the White House were turned off, apparently so the Secret Service could use night vision to monitor the protesters. This is how bad it got. The National Guard also reportedly were drafted in to help combat rioting outside of the White House and elsewhere in the nation's capital. That's what happened in June, May 28th through June the 1st or June 2nd. It was 6 days long, and the president had to be rushed to safety. The bunker had been previously utilized by Vice President Dick Cheney during 9/11, when authorities feared that one of the hijacked planes was headed to the White House. That was the last time they basically used it. So for them to take the president of the United States down into the bunker, there had to have been a severe threat of a breach of the White House. And then on that Friday, back in 2020, the White House went into lockdown as angry crowds marched on the Capitol. Secret Service officials reportedly placed Trump's abode on high alert in response to Washington, D.C. protesters before the lockdown concluded before 8:30 p.m. So, again, that just goes to show you, people, that was the real insurrection. But now we've got a document stating that the real radicals are those who think fraud took place in the general election, emboldening the impact of violent breaches of the Capitol, conditions related to COVID-19 pandemic, and conspiracy theories promoting violence. Now, what conspiracy theories have any of the alternative media, such as myself, let's say Alex Jones or Natural News or any other alternative media, who has been espousing violence? Nobody has. It's been the exact opposite. They've been calling for peaceful protesting, nonviolent protesting. They've been going above and beyond measure to make sure that that's what they're doing. But yet you've got these people lying and saying the opposite. And so we're going to have, the anniversary of 9/11 coming up. So be prepared, because there may be false flag operations. We know that the FBI were the ones that were involved in the Whitmer kidnapping. Now it's coming out that, they had FBI informants in there and FBI agents undercover that were actually leading this whole kidnapping plot, basically. But this article goes on in the national assessment of this domestic violent extremism under the Biden regime. It says the IC assesses that lone offenders or small cells of DVEs, which would be domestic violent extremists, adhering to a diverse set of violent extremist ideologies, are more likely to carry out violent attacks in the homeland organizations that allegedly advocate a domestic violent extremist ideology. DVE attackers often radicalize independently by consuming violent extremist material online and mobilize without direction from a violent extremist organization, making detection and disruption difficult. Again, they're basically constituting anybody who would question the elections and read material that might show you that Dominion and Smartmatic and mail-in votes were just fraudulent and no perforations in the mail-in votes and so on and so forth. That's violent somehow. Or if you talk about the 9/11 attacks being an inside job in order to invade Afghanistan and so on. So you see what they're doing. They're getting conservatives, those who love the country, who may say that they are proud of the American flag, the national anthem, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, who question this authority because they're not really the authority. They ran a coup successfully against the United States and have overtaken it. They will call you violent extremist. It says the IC assesses that radically or ethnically motivated violent extremists and militia violent extremists present the most lethal domestic violent extremist threats. And they're most likely to conduct mass casualty attacks against civilians, typically targeting law enforcement and government. Well, the only people that we saw attacking law enforcement and government really were Antifa and Black Lives Matter over the last couple years, people. They're the ones that have done more damage to law enforcement than any other group. But they don't want to talk about that. And then they talk about people who promote the superiority of the white race. We didn't go around saying white lives matter. We didn't go out and protest for white lives. I mean, we have groups that are called Black Lives Matter, that if you came up and say all lives matter, remember a young girl came up to the Black Lives Matter group and a couple of the guys, and they said, do Black Lives Matter? And she said, yeah, all lives matter. And they shot her in the head and killed her. Now, if that's not promoting black lives, what is? And I'm not against black people. What I'm saying is we're being pit against each other in a psyop to attack one another in this game of destroying the United States economically, morally, and in all different ways, shapes, and forms in order to merge us into a form of world government, destroying our boundaries, destroying our borders, and so on. We see all the news about that, but this is what this is. And they're trying to make it sound like if you question authority, if you question the elections, if you question anything about the COVID virus, other than, in other words, if you don't follow the narrative of the CDC and the World Health Organization, you're a terrorist, basically. If you question wearing masks, you're a terrorist. The organization that does the most terrorist attacks here in the United States is apparently the FBI, who has several times entrapped people. It's been in the mainstream news. It's been in courts. This is what people have to realize. Lastly, I did an article this was back in 2014, because 9/11 is coming up. And most people believe that Osama bin I'm going to go away from that, guys, because right now, like I said, imminently, I want to discuss a few things. Is America done? This is what they are trying to do. Clear and simple. The Great Reset. Everybody's heard about it. You know about the Great Reset. Klaus Schwab, the head of the WEF. You know, they say you will have nothing, you will own nothing. They talk about eating bugs. News agencies are showing all this nonsense on mainstream news and stuff about, oh, how great crickets are to eat and so on and so forth. Nonsense. Everybody knows it. But that's exactly what's happening. Now they're trying to put down protesting because they know they've got the 2022 elections coming up, the midterm elections, and Biden's numbers are in the shithole, and so is Kamala Harris's. The Democratic Party, they're on fire, basically. They're burning. They're like a sinking ship, like the Titanic. And people know that, and they know it. And they know that Americans are pissed and they're fed up. They're tired of all this nonsense that they've been pushing on us, and we're sick of it, and we're overthrowing it. We're throwing it off of us. And so now, like I said, with revelations coming out about Hillary Clinton and the DNC and the spying, now that all that's coming out, they're panicking, and they've got to do something. So now they're trying to push this war scenario. They're trying to push this war scenario. And, it is, we're seeing this growing tyranny, this fascism. And yet, we're starting to push it away. We're trying to throw that yoke of bondage off of ourselves, and they know it. They know it very well. They know it very well. And so, with this war, they are, this was again, I talked about it in my last show. There was a coup in 2014 in Ukraine. We know that. The United States helped to perpetuate it, to get out the pro-Russian president in Ukraine, set up an anti-Russian president. You had Joe Biden going over there, throwing out prosecutors who were investigating his crackhead son in Burisma and Privat Bank. They were sending money over there so they could finance the Ukrainians to take back the Donetsk region. Now they're attacking the Donetsk region again, today's reports. And Russia wasn't having it. It's not that I'm supporting Russia. But I want to show you, Tucker Carlson was talking about this, and he detailed how the Russia-Ukraine disagreement and how the Biden administration basically has come in and just bungled everything. I want to show you this report from Tucker Carlson, a good report, right here, Sic Semper Tyrannis News. Let me set that up. And here is Tucker Carlson now.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. So much drama. You can't say we're not learning a lot, though. And one topic we've learned a lot about over the last year is Russia. And the reason we've learned about it is because Russia is Joe Biden's #1 favorite topic of conversation. Joe Biden can talk about Russia forever, meaning in his case for up to 4 minutes at a time, which at this stage is Joe Biden's version of a filibuster. You may have asked yourself, when will Joe Biden ever stop talking about Russia? Well, very soon, actually. In fact, he seems to be losing his train of thought right now. But don't worry, he'll be back to it. Russia is a very comfortable topic for Joe Biden. He enjoys talking about it much more than talking about, say, inflation or crime or fentanyl deaths, or about how half the population of Haiti appears to be showing up in Florida in leaky boats. Those subjects may interest you since you live in this country, but not Joe Biden. Despite appearances, Biden doesn't actually live here. In his head, Joe Biden is floating high above the Sea of Azov, swooping in over southeastern Ukraine like a Botox superhero, just to make sure everything's okay with his little buddies, the Ukrainians. Joe Biden's a protector that way. But he's also at the same time a scholar and a teacher, not a credentialed educator like the doctor he's married to. Joe Biden didn't go to community college in Delaware for a doctorate in diversity studies. He's just a civilian. But Biden can still lecture with the best of him. If you signed up for his Intro to Russia is Bad class this semester, you will not be disappointed. Professor Biden knows that material cold. So what have we learned so far? Well, first and foremost, Russia is bad. That's the name of the course. It's the entire syllabus, actually. It may be the only fact you will come away with after months of heavy coursework. Russia is bad. Learn that, and you will ace the exam. Now, to be clear, we're talking about Russia here. We're not talking about the Soviet Union. There's a difference, and Joe Biden's been around long enough to know what that difference is. He's seen it firsthand. The Soviets wanted peace. Joe Biden told us that repeatedly in the 70s and 80s. Russia, by contrast, just wants war. The Russians are warlike people. It's inherent. Russians are driven by bloodlust. They have tiny brains. Their breath smells like herring. They're always drunk, often on aftershave or household cleaning products. On Sunday mornings, when good people are still asleep at home with their families, your average Russian will still be lurking through the dark streets, leering through bloodshot eyes, trying to subvert somebody else's democracy or conquer a peace-loving neighbor. That's just who Russians are. It's what they do. But if there's one thing you absolutely must know about Russia, if you're going to navigate this world, that thing is that on February 16th, 2022, Vladimir Putin is going to invade our closest ally in the world, Ukraine. So write that down. February 16th, 2022, Ukraine invasion begins. That's the day. Joe Biden has been very clear about that. So have the intel agencies and, of course, their stenographers in the news media. As Politico put it, quote, Russia will start a physical assault on Ukraine as soon as February 16th, multiple U.S. officials confirmed a physical assault. But this won't be your typical physical assault like the kind you've experienced in the New York City subway. No. According to Politico, this physical assault, quote, could be preceded by a barrage of missile strikes and cyber attacks. So these aren't just gang members, they're Russians. The Daily Mail confirmed Politico's reporting. Quote, Putin has decided to invade Ukraine on Wednesday, read the headline. Brits and Americans told to get out now. That same day, the Mirror in London let us know they had seen Vladimir Putin's planning documents, and Operation Snuff Out Ukrainian Democracy was already in motion. Quote, Russian invasion of Ukraine set for 3 a.m. tomorrow with missiles and tank attack. So February 16th, 2022 was definitely the day the music was going to die in Ukraine. Everybody knew that. But weirdly, nobody thought to tell the president of Ukraine, who is an obedient puppet of the Biden State Department, you might think would have heard the news. But no, he hadn't. He was baffled by it. He said this, quote, we are told that February 16th will be the day of the attack. We will make it a day of unity. The relevant decree has already been signed. On this day, we will hang national flags, wear blue and yellow ribbons, and show the world our unity. That was President Zelensky. Now, keep in mind that in addition to being a puppet of the Biden administration, President Zelensky of Ukraine was also at one point a low-grade comic of some kind. So he was kidding. That was a joke. But in the American news media, there are no jokes. Humor has been banned for several years now. In fact, at this point, you're more likely to hear a joke on a Russian news broadcast than on American television, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Things have changed. In any case, the readers of teleprompter on our TV channels did not get this joke at all. So here's the coverage they produced.
This is CNN Breaking News.
We're back with more on the breaking news just out of Ukraine. President Zelensky saying Ukraine has been informed that this Wednesday, the 16th, will be the day of the attack.
Ukraine's President Zelensky addressing his nation today about reports intelligence picked up that actual date for an attack of Wednesday.
Telling them that he is told that February 16th will be the day of the attack.
President Zelensky saying that his government has been told that February 16th will be the day of a possible attack.
Today, defiant Ukrainians celebrated a day of unity. There had been reports and intelligence warnings that today, February 16th, might be the day of the invasion. Of course, that's up to Vladimir Putin. Will Ukraine be ready?
Oh, yeah, that's up to Vladimir Putin.
They didn't get it was a joke. So it put us in a very weird position where suddenly we were being lectured on humor by Eastern Europeans. Think about that for a minute. Zelensky's staff issued a statement explaining that actually he was kidding. So some news outlets had to update their reporting, but they were clearly annoyed with Zelensky. Quote, Ukrainian leader makes confusing joke about Russian invasion, harumph New York Magazine. But here's the funniest part of all. There was no invasion. February 16th, 2022 was yesterday. Nothing happened. Vladimir Putin did not invade Ukraine. Now, if Joe Biden noticed the lack of an invasion, he didn't acknowledge that. He didn't say a word. Today, he was back on television assuring us once again the invasion's coming.
How high is the threat of a Russian invasion right now?
It's very high.
Why?
It's very high because they have not moved any of their troops out. They've moved more troops in, number one. Number two, we have reason to believe that they are engaged in a false flag operation to have an excuse to go in. Every indication we have is they're prepared to go into Ukraine, attack Ukraine.
Are you going to call Putin?
I'm not calling Putin. I have no plans to call Putin right now.
Do you think he's made a final decision, sir?
So here's a guy who's literally wearing a mask outside, assuring us that he's sane and on the ball enough to know when Putin is going to invade Ukraine. But of course, he's gotten it wrong. What's going on here? Well, the most obvious explanation is it's the most obvious one. Doddering old Joe Biden, who even before he was senile was widely considered a moron in Washington, has been played by Vladimir Putin, who may be evil but definitely is not stupid. If Putin bluffed an invasion of Ukraine to make Biden look ridiculous, it worked. Maybe there was something else going on. Maybe Putin still plans to invade Ukraine. It's hard to know. But as you just heard, Joe Biden doesn't know because he refuses to talk to the Russians. The Russians are too immoral for Joe Biden. That's saying a lot, coming from a former credit card lobbyist who helped run America's most corrupt state. But according to Joe Biden, Vladimir Putin is not someone you can ever talk to because he put bounties on the lives of American troops in Afghanistan. How does Joe Biden know that happened? Well, he got it from the very same people who spent all last month telling us that Putin was going to invade Ukraine on February 16th. Here they are.
New report says that Russia offered Afghan militants bounties to kill U.S. soldiers. The administration's non-reaction.
CNN, matching the reporting, cited a source asserting that the cash rewards did lead to coalition casualties.
Not so long ago, in a land not so far away, there was a Republican Party that would have confronted Russia for putting bounties on the heads of U.S. soldiers.
To say nothing of putting bounties on American troops.
It's unbelievable, Joy.
Yeah.
I mean, he has still yet to say anything as the President of the United States about bounties on American troops.
So the most discredited people in the world weighing in with total certainty on the most important topics. If you were to sum up the moment we're living in, that's how you'd describe it. Everything they just told you turned out to be untrue. They were lying. Why were they lying about that? Well, of course, to keep us in Afghanistan forever. Why would they want to do that, you ask? We weren't achieving anything, obviously. The second we left, the Taliban took over and became one of the best armed militaries in the entire region. So what we were doing wasn't working, but they didn't want us to leave. In fact, they were willing to lie to keep us there. Why? Well, we don't have any special intel, but we're thinking maybe the defense industry, profligate campaign donors, may have had something to do with it. Here's Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut explaining that actually Ukraine needs a lot more lethal weapons from Raytheon. Watch.
I was so deeply impressed with how resolute and determined the people of Ukraine are. They are courageous, they are steadfast, and they're going to fight in the streets, their neighborhoods, the fields, if we give them the arms that they need. And that's why I've also urged the Javelin missiles and the Stinger missile to combat their tanks and their aircraft.
So that guy who lied about his own war service is pretty excited at the thought of Ukrainians fighting and dying in the streets. These people are so ghoulish. And of course they're promoting war, not to maintain the democracy that is Ukraine. Ukraine is not a democracy. It has never been a democracy in its history, and it's not now. It's a client state of the Biden administration. It's a place in which opposition media and opposition political candidates are completely shut down by the government. It is not a democracy at all. And it's insulting they would suggest otherwise. But people like that, and many people in Washington, are pushing Ukraine toward war. So we're sending them weapons and then making it very easy for them to use them. They told us now for months that any preemptive attack by Ukraine actually isn't real. If you see Ukraine using these weapons, no, says Tony Blinken. That's not aggression, it's a false flag attack by Russia.
Russia plans to manufacture a pretext for its attack. This could be a violent event that Russia will blame on Ukraine, or an outrageous accusation that Russia will level against the Ukrainian government. We don't know exactly the form it will take. Could be a fabricated so-called terrorist bombing inside Russia, the invented discovery of a mass grave, a staged drone strike against civilians, or a fake, even a real attack using chemical weapons.
So they're going to use chemical weapons, but it won't actually be them. It'll be those diabolical Russians drunk on aftershave. Once again, there's zero evidence that any of this is true. This is clearly some sort of intel op that's being filtered through the State Department and the media. But yet, for months now, they've told us Russia is definitely going to manufacture a pretext for a Ukraine invasion. So finally, a lone AP reporter bravely asked, "How do you know this?" And they immediately accused him of working for Putin. He's pretty much the only reporter who asked a question like that. And there's a depressing irony to that. Matt Taibbi put it very nicely this morning in a piece on Substack. Quote, "A big reason we're supposed to be an improvement over Putin's Russia," Taibbi wrote, "is that we don't use the news media as an instrument of information warfare. At least Russian reporters don't have much choice in being conscripted for this duty. What's the excuse of Westerners who broadcast CIA gibberish on command?" Well, that's a very good question. And the answer is they have no excuse.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our
when you have to take the word of a foreign president like Putin over the word of your own president or elder-in-chief, this old-ass senile man in the White House, you know there's something wrong. It, like Tucker Carlson is saying, and I've done a couple shows on this, I'm telling you, in my opinion, I believe what they're doing is this. They're trying to fumigate and uplift all of this tension and make it look like Russia's trying to do something. Meanwhile, they're sending all the weapons and everything into the Ukraine because they want the Ukraine to take back the Donetsk region and more than likely go into Crimea. I doubt if they're going to go into Crimea, but they're trying to get them to take back that Donetsk region because they want to make Ukraine part of NATO. They're trying to expand it. Russia is not allowing it. The Biden administration and them, like I said, they're like a dumpster on fire right now. And they know the chickens are coming home to roost. They know that the Durham report is coming out. There's several indictments coming against them. They know that they're on to the Obama administration back then and Hillary Clinton when they were the ones doing the spying on the White House, on Trump's campaign and so on. That's all coming out. And they also know the 2022 elections are coming up and their ratings are in the garbage dump, in the garbage heap. So they have to do something. And so now they're trying to utilize the Ukraine for their distraction and trying to provoke Russia. I mean, it's all crazy. It's craziness. So all I can say, people, is all the stuff that you see is happening, it's coming to us. They're not done with all these mandates. They're not done with their agenda. They're going to continue pushing it hardcore. But now they're focusing on it, targeting Americans as terrorists. They're trying to put down any type of resistance, even if it's peaceful. They're trying to outlaw protesting in general. And that's the example you're seeing in Canada right now. People are being protesting peacefully, and they're going in there and shutting them down, arresting them, busting out windows, beating up old people. They're off the chain. And that's Canada. I mean, Canada is traditionally a country that we always used to joke about as being a pretty laid-back country. But yet now you've got the son of Hitler over there, Trudeau, going whack out crazy. And then you've seen the Facebook guy, one of the leaders of the Facebook guy, getting caught for child sex ring, trying to hook up with some 13-year-old boy or something. Alex Jones was right. He's been talking about all this pedophilia and stuff for years, and everybody would laugh at him and stuff, but he was correct. This stuff is happening. So that's what's going on, people. all kinds of craziness. So if you like my show, people, please like, share, and subscribe. Please share it with others. I have a Rumble channel. I'll put the link below. You can check it out. There's a lot of things on the Rumble channel that I talk about that I can't talk about here on YouTube for obvious reasons. So with that, I am going to sign off. And I just pray that every one of you have a good night. Pray for the peace of the United States. Pray for our country. And become active in trying to save this country, people, because if you don't, we're going to be hit like a soup sandwich, basically. With that, I'm signing off. Have a great night.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.